Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm going to be doing my comics roundup. I planned on doing these like every 2 months and then I didn't do one in December. So I will be rounding up all of the comics and graphic novels that I have read basically in November and December because I didn't really read that much in January. So first off, 2 books that I was kind of underwhelmed with. The first one was Deadly Class, which I actually read for a readathon. I think it was for the 24-hour readathon. One of them that I did back in like November. It's been too long. This one, I really liked it in the beginning, but then the plot went somewhere really weird. Basically, they end up going to Las Vegas. I really didn't like it from that point forward, which made me not want to keep going with the series. This comic book series takes place in the 1980s. It is set at a boarding school where basically the world's like biggest assassins and murderers and like most evil people of the world send their children, so the kids obviously are all very messed up. You're mostly following this one character named Marcus. The people that he encounters in this first volume don't really seem like his friends, but for some reason he acts like they're his friends, and he ends up going on this road trip to Vegas, which I really just did not like. I really like the art style and I really like the concept in the beginning because I really like boarding school stories, but yeah, again, the change in the storyline just really was not my thing. But a lot of people really seem to like this graphic novel, so I recommend checking it out from the library if you're interested, but personally just wasn't my thing. The next one I checked out was volume 1 of Why the Last Man by Brian K. Vaughan. I was very excited to read this one because it comes so like highly recommended. Like a lot of people consider this one of their favorite graphic novel series, and a lot of people recommended this to me, and it was okay. I can understand why people like it so much because it's a very original concept, but I feel like the way that it was pulled off didn't really resonate for me. Like I felt like the apocalyptic situation of this one man being the last man on earth didn't really make a lot of sense, and the way people were acting didn't really make a lot of sense, and I don't know, I just wasn't really believing the situation, and I wasn't crazy with the way that the different female characters were being stereotyped, and I don't know, it just didn't hit home for me. I just wasn't really a fan of that one, so I decided not to continue on with the series. The next one that I read was Alex and Ada Volume 1, and this one I really enjoyed. I was surprised by how much I ended up enjoying this one. I first heard about it from Sabrina over at Unmanaged Mischief. She mentioned it and she literally did a review on it like the week after I first saw it. It basically follows this man named Alex, and he ends up getting this like companion android named Ada, and he struggles with whether or not they're considered like actual humans, how to treat them, should they have like consciousness, things like that. It's a really interesting story and has a very unique take on this, I don't want to call it a trope, but this like idea of like androids and what's considered a real human and not a real human, and I'm very excited to check out volume 2. The next book that I read was An Age of License, a travelogue by Lucy Nisley. If you've been with my channel for a while, you may have seen that I read Relish, which was one of like my favorite comic books I think of 2013, and I really enjoyed that one, so I was super excited to check this one out because this is her new little like memoir series, and I liked this one, but I wasn't super crazy about it. This one follows a specific time of her life when she is traveling throughout Europe, but I felt like some of the stories just felt very disconnected from each other. A lot of this is just taken from like obviously her travel journals and things like that, so I felt like it was just like a smattering of things that had happened while she was traveling, and while there was some deeper thoughts conveyed throughout the travelogue, it didn't really resonate with me. And the final graphic novel I ended up reading was Batman Noel by Lee Bermejo. I believe that's how you say his last name. This was actually a really interesting graphic novel. It's basically A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, but with the Batman twist to it. So I really liked this one. I actually read it like right around Christmas time, which probably helped. But I really liked what the writer and the artist did with the story and the way that they incorporated different elements of the Batman mythology with this classic Christmas story. I wish I had the book with me. This is another one again I got from the library, but the art in here is just really beautiful. I highly recommend checking this one out, especially around Christmas time if you're looking for something Christmassy that's also like comic booky. And then some of the individual comics that I have been reading. I'm still going through Lumberjanes, which I am absolutely adoring. They just finished off their first arc, and I believe the first trade comes out in March, I want to say. So if any of you guys haven't checked out Lumberjanes and you've been waiting for the trade, it's coming out in the spring, so keep an eye out for that. I love this series. This is actually the standalone issue that came out after the first arc ended and they started the second arc, and this is just such a phenomenal comic book. I'm also still reading Batgirl. This is again one that I am just having so much fun with, and I'm really liking what they're doing with this character and how they're exploring Batgirl and the effects that the previous storyline, like issues 1 through 35, are having on this one without it being too dark like the previous storyline was. If you like Miss Marvel and you like that sort of more light-hearted but still has deeper meanings type superhero story, I recommend checking out Batgirl. It's doing a really interesting, unique thing for DC at least. And then also I'm reading Gotham Academy, which again I'm really enjoying, and supposedly this isn't getting really good sales, which is making me really sad. This is like a new title, so maybe it's just not getting the attention that it's deserving, but I think that this is just so much fun and slightly darker for a kid's comic book. This is something that's all ages, so even if you're someone who doesn't like a lot of violence or a lot of gore or anything like that, I recommend checking this out. There's this really interesting mystery that's going on between the main character and Batman, which I'm definitely intrigued to see where it goes. Check this one out. I'm really loving it, and I'm gonna be super sad if they end up canceling it because the sales numbers aren't where they want it to be. And then some ones that I think might be slightly more under the radar that I have been checking out. There is Rasputin, which is being put out by Image Comics. This one I'm finding very intriguing, but I haven't figured out exactly how I feel on it. This is issue 2. I'm a couple issues behind. I think they're on like issue 4 now, so I really need to catch up. But what I like about this storyline is that they're playing with their Rasputin history, but they're basically just taking their own twist on it, and there's a little bit of a supernatural element to it. The art in here is absolutely gorgeous. There's some really beautiful like full page spreads like this in every issue, it seems like. And then the other thing that I really like is there are entire pages where there's no real dialogue, there's just like action, and so you're just like inferring what is happening based on the expressions and the details of each of the panels, which I think is really interesting. Like there's pages that are just completely sparse and there's no dialogue whatsoever, but I think that this is doing a really interesting thing with comic books that you don't normally see. So I recommend looking this one up if you're at a comic book store. Just check out the art. I think the art is just really eye-catching, and I think because it doesn't use a lot of dialogue, I end up spending a lot more time with this comic book than I do with other comics, because you know, I'm just sort of poring over the panel slowly, which is really interesting, at least for me. And then the other one that I haven't completely decided how I feel on this is Odyssey by Matt Fraction and Christian Ward. This is a gender-bent space version of Homer's Odyssey. What sold me on this, besides that premise, is the art. There's this just like amazingly epic fold out that happens in the first issue that I could not stop staring at. Even now that I folded it out, I just started staring at it again. But I am a person who doesn't usually do space stories very well. Like I find them interesting, but I don't find them super interesting, like the exception is Saga. But other than that, usually space stories don't sit well with me, and so I'm intrigued by this just because I like that it's a gender bent version of the Odyssey, but at the same time I'm not sure if I want to do this issue to issue. I might just end up picking this up as a trade. And then the final one that I wanted to talk about was The Kitchen. This is put out by Vertigo Comics. I only picked up issue 1 because the art style isn't completely my thing, and it's also kind of violent, which put me off a little bit just because I'm super sensitive sometimes to graphic violence like that. But this is basically like The Sopranos if all of the leads were ladies. It takes place in the 1970s in New York City in Hell's Kitchen. Basically these are a bunch of mobsters' wives whose the husbands have gone to jail, and they're basically just taking over the business because they have no other choice. The art style, I'll show it to you, it very much feels like 1970s style comic book thing. So if that's your preference, then I think you would like this, but personally it's not really my bag, so I probably won't be continuing on this series, but I feel like it's worth talking about because I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. So if this would be a thing you would be interested in, I recommend checking it out. So yeah, those are all of the comic books that I have been reading over the last couple of months, and I'm still like super behind on comics. Like I've got my little stack sitting there. But yeah, if you are reading any of these comics, feel free to leave a comment down below letting me know what you guys thought of them. Also, if you have any current comics going on that you would recommend, that you currently have on your pull list, feel free to leave that down in the comment section as well. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.